That's right, folks. This is On the Money with Ryan Wheelis. We are multicasting. This is both our radio show, our YouTube channel. We're letting you folks get all of this financial education in as many different venues as we possibly can. Mr. Ryan Wheelis, it is great to see you. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing excellent, Spike. Got a great show full of some really good information coming your way, so don't touch that dial. Don't get off the YouTube channel and listen up, folks. We've got a lot of stuff coming your way about retirement planning, what to do with money, like whether you have some or you don't have some, and kind of how to figure out how to live the next 30 years without your paycheck and not run out of money in that process. It's a daunting task.
That's actually what we're going to talk about here today. So on all these different platforms, so if you're listening to us on the radio, if you just tuned in right now, we'll be here for a full hour. If you're joining us on YouTube, we try to keep our videos to around 8, 9, 10, 11 minutes, something like that. It's about the time span that folks have for sitting down, but Ryan is posting hundreds of videos now on his YouTube channel. That's On the Money, and then usually I like to type in Ryan Wheelis. So if you're going to YouTube, On the Money and Ryan Wheelis. And then for our radio listeners out there, you can go to retirenowhouston.com for more information or retirenowAustin.com. But the question I've got to ask you right now, Ryan, is retiring today more complicated than it was? Well, I'm going to say for my grandparents. I can remember my two grandfathers got pension plans. Is it harder today than it was 30 years ago? And if so, why? Why is it harder today?
Spike, there's no question it is harder today for just a plethora of reasons. I mean, we only have 11 minutes here in this segment. We've already burned a minute 43, right?
Sorry.
But let's talk about your grandfather's retirement for a moment. He probably worked for one company for 30, 40 years. He didn't have much in savings outside of his checking and savings accounts, maybe some bank CDs, things like that. But
man, you were literally hitting it right on the head. Everything.
Yeah, that's the way it was, right? And then the company he worked for, let's just take a GM or a Ford, for instance, right? The GM or Ford, they put money aside as part of his compensation package and invested those dollars in a pension. And based on his tenure with the company and the growth rate and all that sort of thing, he would qualify for X amount of dollars a month as long as he had breath in his body. And then he had a choice to make to where, and this is really the only retirement choice, by the way, back then, was to put your grandmother on as a joint payout and take slightly less money a month, or not put her on as a joint payout and get more money per month, right? Mm-hmm. And then Social Security was usually taken at 62. There was no 67, 70, late age, any of that, because your pension was offset at 62, equal to the amount of your Social Security you would get at 62. And then that was it, bud. I mean, people they lived, and very few people, by the way, had any money at all in the stock market back then. And a lot of people don't realize that, but that's the way it was,
I can remember a conversation my grandfather had, and I was very little, but I can remember him talking about bank CDs. And how it was nice that that was kind of where they created this other income. And yes, they had that pension plan. But we don't see that today, do we, Ryan? We don't see that extra pension plan quite as much.
Well, Spike, I mean, what's happened today is less than 13% of the companies in America offer pensions anymore at all. And so what does that mean for our listeners and our viewers? Well, what it means, folks, is that today the onus of preparing for your retirement, which is going to come whether you are ready for it or not, by the way, okay? The onus of preparing for it is now on your shoulders. And Spike, what makes it even more complicated is the 401k plan is the largest funder, if you will, the largest savings vehicle people use to fund their retirement, when it was a plan that was never designed to be the primary source of retirement to begin with. It's like this is insane, right? But that's the reality is we've got to fund our retirement by saving into a 401k. We get a company match, and hopefully we get long-term growth in the stock market over a period of time. And we use those dollars to fund our golden years. Yeah. And that's a big difference between your grandfather's retirement and what's going to be, your mom and dad's retirement or even our own retirement, Spike.
Yeah, yeah. Do you mind if I share some numbers with you? I've got the 2024 Schroders U.S. Retirement Survey. And the reason why I actually give this a lot of leeway is because they surveyed over 10,000 Americans who are getting prepared or already in retirement. I think that's a pretty good sample size to take away and use some of these numbers. And 51% of the folks who were surveyed are expressing concern about outliving their retirement savings.
Well, Spike, it is the number one fear that we deal with on a day-to-day basis when we serve the folks in our community and the clients at Allied Wealth. And it's one of these things where it's very real. But, what's also interesting about the survey we're talking about is a lot of these folks feel like they're underprepared, okay? And that's why they're going to take Social Security at 62 because they don't feel like their money's going to stand the test of time. Well, I invite you folks to make a little bit more of a informed decision, if you will. And I'm not saying that taking your Social Security at 62 is the wrong decision. It just may not be the best decision. It may not be the best way to optimize your Social Security benefits, all right? In spite, I think one of the problems we have here is, I think it's the numbers, like 32% of Americans engage with a financial advisor to begin with.
Yeah. And folks, feel free to go ahead and open up another tab, search that on that interweb, which is never wrong. But yeah, somewhere around there, only about 30-something% of Americans actually use a financial advisor.
Yeah. And so, how do you know that you don't have enough money? How do you know that taking Social Security from a mathematical standpoint is the right thing to do at 62? Have you sat down with somebody? Yeah, you can get on Fidelity.com, and I'm not knocking those. I think Vanguard's got one. They've got these simple calculators, how long will your money last? And folks, that's fun, and that's gamification, by the way, which can be very dangerous of retirement planning. But working with an actual advisor who specializes in planning for retirement, who really sits down and goes through a detailed analysis about your unique individual situation is really the best path forward. In fact, Vanguard, Spike, put out a study, and the Vanguard study says that, hey, if you have $500,000 over a 25-year period, those that worked with a financial advisor wound up with about $3.5 million. Those that didn't wound up with about $1.3 million. That's a huge difference, okay? And I think a lot of people don't understand the value that financial advisors bring. I think part of that is they think that advisors do investment consulting. And what is investment consulting? It's looking at risk tolerance. It's trying to pick investments with the best return, lowest risk, that sort of thing. And they think that that's where it ends with the financial advisor. And the reality is it doesn't, folks. You might get that from Fidelity, working at the Fidelity guy with your 401k plan, because that is, by the way, where it ends with those, with a Fidelity 401k or Schwab 401k or any other third-party 401k plan out there, because a lot of times they're not able to give you additional advice until you leave the company. That's a kind of a weird thing, by the way, but that is the way it works. My point is, there's so much more to it. There's wealth enhancement. How do we enhance your wealth? How do we help you move from living a life of working your tail off to amass a sum of money to living a life of significance in your golden years? How do we enhance your wealth, right? How do we mitigate tax liability, all right? How do we make sure your wealth is not unjustly taken from you? That's a really big fear of my higher net worth clients, by the way, all right? And then how do we make sure what wealth you have transfers to the next generation in a way to where it doesn't screw their lives up, okay? That's big. That's a big deal, Spike, all right? Or in a way to where Christmas isn't awkward because we're not fighting over who got grandma's dishes, okay? There's also the estate planning aspects, business risk management. There's so much more to what we do, and I think people really miss the boat about the value a financial advisor brings. But folks, go back to that Vanguard study. $500,000 over 25 years turns into about $1.3 million if you do it yourself. If you work with an advisor, that same $500,000 over a 25-year period turns into about $3.3 million, which is a big, big difference. And folks, this is not coming from Spike. This isn't coming from Ryan Wheelis. This is a Vanguard study who is a world-renowned do-it-yourself shop who also has investors that don't do it themselves and work with a Vanguard manager. This is a major statistic that folks really ought to listen to, Spike, because that little tidbit of information could change your life for the better.
And that number that was supporting it, I mean, we were talking about a $1.6, $1.7 million difference over a 25-year period. This wasn't taking huge risks. This wasn't using options. This wasn't using hedge funds. It was actually, if you dig into the study, about an extra 3% per year that working with a financial advisor could provide you to help grow your wealth over a 25-year period. So I would ask our listeners out there and our viewers, would you pay 1% to work with a financial advisor to make an extra 3% to end up with over
double the money?
Double the money? Yeah. To me, it's a no-brainer. Ryan, take us out to break here. We are going to have to take a quick break. And for our video viewers, you can click on the next video to watch the continuation of our radio show here. Yeah, Ryan, let's help folks out here with getting that plan together.
Listen, folks, look, we do. I pay to be on this radio station. Okay, I'm not famous. I'm not just they don't call me up and say, Willis, will you please do a radio show because you're so awesome, folks? I pay to be here. Okay, but I pay to be here because I want to help you. I want to provide you the education that you need when you sit down and talk to a financial advisor in today's world so that you can feel informed and empowered to make good decisions and live the best life possible you can with the resources you have to work with in your golden years. How do you do that? How do we help you? Well, folks, you got to call us. You can call us at 844-944-7555. Again, 844-944-7555. You can check us out at retirenowhouston.com, also retirenowAustin.com. And we're here to serve, folks. And listen, it doesn't cost you a dime to sit down and talk with us. And the moment you're sitting down with us, we're trying to find out if you're a candidate to work with us and you're a fit for what we do. And also you're trying to find out if we are a fit for you. Let's find that out together. All right? Pick up the phone and call us.
Get your financial flight plan started right now, as Ryan said, 844-944-7555. More on the money with Ryan Wheelis of Allied Wealth right after this.